Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Geetam Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantrastasya Namani Yani Karmapyekam Tasya Devasya Seva. Today we are doing the last 6 shlokas of chapter 5, and I have titled this as Knowing and Seeing the Truth as It Is. So we continue from what we did in the last class. We did the 23rd shloka. We concluded with the 23rd shloka in the last session, which was as follows. Shaknoti ihaivaya sodhum prak sharira vimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegam sa yuktaha sa sukhi naraha. So we said that essentially it points out that the biggest enemy that we have, as Sri Bhagavan says in the 3rd chapter also, when Arjuna asks him that why does someone, even though they know that something is wrong, something is papa, sinful, they still commit it. So is there something which makes them commit sin even after knowing that it is sin? So then Sri Bhagavan responds in the 3rd chapter. He says, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidhyena miha vairinam. So there is this massive enemy inside you, which is also like an voracious eater, and it goes by 2 names, Kama and Krodha. Kama means the desire for enjoyment, enjoying the senses, not only the gross desires, but the even bigger, subtle desires that we have inside for name, fame, praise, other people's praise, reputation, to be known as somebody great, to be known as powerful, to be respected by everybody. These kind of desires. So these desires, and when these desires are not fulfilled or something comes in the way of our fulfilling these desires, we become angry. And krodha, kama becomes krodha when it is obstructed by something, right? Sometimes there is no external agent, but our own inability to fulfill our karma makes us angry. Okay, we can't blame anybody else, but we still try to find someone to blame and we become angry with them. So kama and krodha, this is the biggest enemy inside us. And so here again in the 5th chapter, he brings up this point. He says if someone can tolerate this enemy or the force of this enemy, kama krodhodbhavam vegam, if someone can tolerate, then sa yuktaha means he is properly situated in yoga, in the path of karma yoga. He's talking about karma yoga now. So from the 2nd chapter onwards, karma yoga is going on, it is still going on. And he says such a person is properly situated in karma yoga. And he is a sukhi, means he is a happy person. If a person can tolerate their the force of their desires and the force of anger, then they are happy people. And naturally, the opposite is also true, that if someone cannot tolerate anger and lust, anger and greed, anger and the desires which keep coming, and yields to them, surrenders to them, in the sense they are able to make that person behave in unintelligent ways, stupid ways, then such a person will be a miserable person. A person who is always under the control of their anger and desire will be a miserable person. And that is why we see in this world sometimes even people who have a lot of money, who have a lot of power already, right? They have money, they have power, they have status, but still they are not happy because anger and desire keep troubling them. Even after they got all those things, still they are troubled by this enemy. So this enemy does not leave anyone, right? Unless that person becomes conscientious and that person starts looking for the spiritual truth inside themselves. Only when they discover that spiritual nature inside and then they decide to overcome this enemy, then they find happiness, right? So it is not money which makes us happy, but this which makes us happy, discovering our spiritual nature. So here particularly, I would like to recollect a couple of stories that all of us have heard at some point of time in our life or the other, especially children. As children, we were told so many stories from different places. So there is a very nice and simple story in the Panchatantra, which talks about a farmer and his wife. So a farmer and his wife once had a child, a baby, and they were very happy with that baby. They were taking care of that baby. The baby was very small, so they used to wonder, how do I protect the baby, or how do we protect the baby when we are not in the house? So what they did was they went and bought a pet, a mongoose. So a mongoose came into their house and they said, this mongoose will take care of our baby. So one day they had to go out somewhere. They went out, and the woman, the man was not in the house. He had gone somewhere, and the woman went to the river to collect water. And she left the mongoose, and she used to, because as a mother, naturally, she's always anxious about her child. So she was wondering, will the mongoose do something to my baby when I come back, before I come back? Will the one mongoose eat my baby? Will the mongoose harm my baby? So this anxiety was continuously in her mind as she went to the river to collect water and come back. And it so happened that when she came back to the house, the mongoose came running out of the house to greet her. Naturally, pets, you see, if you have a dog in the house, for example, or a cat, so when you are coming back to the house, the dog will come running to you, its tail wagging, and it wants to lick you because it sees you. It's full of love for you. The mongoose came running to greet her, and she saw that the mongoose's mouth was dripping with blood. There was blood dripping from the mongoose's mouth. And so, in her mind, because she was already thinking that the mongoose might harm my baby, she immediately concluded that this mongoose had killed my baby. And taking her pot of water, she dropped it on the mongoose's head, saying, "What a rascal you are! I trusted you with my child, and you have now killed and eaten my child. What a rascal you are." She dropped the pot on the mongoose and she ran inside to see what the condition of her child was. And when she went inside, she found the child was sleeping peacefully on the bed. Nothing had happened to it. And then she looked around and she saw a snake, a very dangerous, venomous snake was lying there, and it was torn apart and blood was flowing from the body of the snake. And then it struck her, oh my God, the mongoose actually killed the snake, and that is why its mouth was bleeding. So she ran back outside to see what the condition of the mongoose was, and she found that the mongoose was dead. She had killed the mongoose in her anger. So anger, when it comes, sometimes it doesn't allow us to think properly. It blocks our thinking, it blocks our logical reasoning, it blocks all clarity in the mind, and thereby it destroys us. It makes us do something which we definitely will regret later. There's another story similar to this, a much smaller story, where there's a crow, and the crow is hungry, it's looking for food, and then suddenly it's flying over a temple where there's some festival has been going on, and in the temple they have been distributing kheer. So the kheer is very tasty. It's a prasadam of the Bhagavan there. And somebody, because probably they got 2 cups of kheer, they left 1 cup there and they went away. So the crow, which is flying above, sees that 1 cup of kheer and gets excited because it's been looking for food. It's hungry. The crow descends to the ground and goes to the kheer. It is so hungry, the crow immediately puts its mouth into the pot of kheer and wants to eat it up. And when it does that, the crow had not realized that the kheer was actually boiling hot. Temple had served the prasadam boiling hot, and the crow doesn't know that, so it puts its beak into the kheer, and as it consumes the first drops of kheer, its tongue gets burnt, and then the crow immediately has a shock. It retracts itself, and becomes extremely angry. It says, what a horrible thing this is. And with its feet, it just knocks that pot of kheer aside. That pot of kheer falls to the ground, it breaks, and all the kheer spills on the floor. And then the crow, it looks at that, and then its anger cools down. And it says, okay, now I'm still hungry. Let me see if I can eat a little bit more of this. So the crow goes again and tries to eat the kheer, eats a little bit more kheer. And by that time, because the kheer is on the floor, it has spread and it has become very cool. And when it is cool, the crow is able to taste the kheer. Its real taste of the kheer comes into its mouth. And the crow sees, oh, wow, how sweet this is. And the crow realizes that if only I had been a little patient, I could have eaten this sweet kheer from the pot itself. Now all of it has spilled on the floor and I can't really enjoy it. So anger, when we become angry, anger suddenly comes to our mind when there is some stimulus. We don't know how it comes, why it comes, but primarily it comes because some desire of ours has been blocked by something. Something that we badly wanted, right, has been obstructed by some phenomenon or some person. And that sparks off an anger, and we act in that anger, and then we regret later. So Sri Bhagavan says that please learn to tolerate that. Learn to tolerate anger. And if you're able to tolerate anger in this lifetime, even as you're living, you will be a very happy person. And after you die, you will attain that supreme destination, which is called mukti. So building on this, as we go forward, Sri Bhagavan says in the 24th shloka, Yo antas sukhontararamah tathantar jyotirevayah sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodi gacchati. So continuing from the previous shloka, he says, by controlling your lust and anger, by controlling your desires and your anger, a person becomes antas sukha. Antas sukha means he experiences the happiness inside himself. Antararamaha, he learns to delight in the self. Antararamaha, aramaha, the word in Sanskrit also means a garden of pleasure or a place of pleasure, a place which gives happiness. Like you go to a scenic spot, you feel so happy there. So antararamaha, one who can roam inside himself and be blissful. He doesn't have to find an external garden to be happy. He roams around in the garden of his own self, inside himself, and he feels so much happiness. Tatha antarjyotirevaha evayah. Antarjyotirevayah. Antarjyotihi means he is able to see the self. He can see himself as different from this material body, and he has a clear realization of himself as different from material existence. And that is called antarjyoti, inner illumination. Sa yogi, such a yogi, brahma nirvanam. Brahma nirvanam means mukti. It's another word used for mukti. Brahma bhutaha, he is already situated in that Brahman, means his mind is conscious of the existence of that supreme being, the supreme consciousness, okay, which in English is called God. He is conscious of God. Brahma bhutha adhigacchati, he goes to mukti. Brahma nirvanam adhigacchati. This word adhigacchati should be attached to Brahma nirvanam. Brahma bhutaha is adjective for yogi. Means that yogi is a person who has realized God, that supreme nature of God, and he attains mukti. So in that state, the yogi attains mukti. So the translation of this shloka will be the yogi who is happy within, who delights in the self and who sees the self within. He is situated in Brahman and attains liberation from material existence. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishayah Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidaha Yatatmanaha Sarvabhuta Hiterataha. So Labhante, obtain, Brahma Nirvanam, the same word which has been used in the previous shloka, meaning mukti. So he says, who attains mukti? He points to different types of people. So one way to understand this shloka is you're looking at these words, 5 different types of people obtain this mukti. Or alternatively, you can say the yogi who has these 5 qualities in him, he attains mukti. Okay, so what are these 5 words? What do they tell us? Rishayaha means the rishis. The plural of rishi is rishayaha. So rishis, the rishi means a person who is a thinker and who can see the truth as it is, who is able to see the reality as it is, the spiritual reality as it is. Rishayaha. Kshina kalmashaha. Kshina kalmashaha means one whose defects. Kalmashaha means weakness or impurity, something that is disturbing in the heart. So basically, he's referring to the kinds of different desires and attachments that we have. So those cause disturbance to us. Shrina kalmasha means one whose desires and all these things have become faded away. They have become weak. Shin ho gaya hai. Chinna dvaidaha. Dvaidha translates to English as dilemma or doubt. Okay, doubt or dilemma or confusion. Okay, dvaidha means not clear, lack of clarity. Chinna dvaidha means one whose mind is free from confusion, one whose mind is always clear, who has a very clear thinking, right? Yatatmanaha. Yatatmanaha means one who is always endeavoring for perfection, one who is always endeavoring to progress. Okay, inspired person. Yataha means one who is putting effort, not a person who's sleeping, not a person who says, okay, now I've become a sadhu, let me just sit quietly. No, he's always working, always making effort to make progress, right? Always doing something productive. And finally, sarva bhuta hite rataha means a person who is always devoted to. Rataha means one who is devoted to, one who is devoted to the welfare of all living beings or the well-being of all living beings. He's concerned about the well-being of all living beings. So he's not looking for only his own happiness. Of course, he's looking for his own happiness first. But then, as he does that, he is also concerned that others must be happy. He is always a well-wisher of other people. He is not selfish. He's willing to share whatever he knows. He's willing to share whatever he has with him with others. He doesn't feel that if I share with others, I will become less. I will diminish. What I have will become small. He doesn't have that fear or insecurity. He's very secure internally because he's already feeling a lot of happiness inside. Such a person, sarva bhuta hite rataha. So, 5 types of people: the rishis, those whose hearts have been cleaned of all impurity, those whose minds are very clear, no confusion in them, those who are always endeavoring to make progress, and those who are always well-wishers of others. So, all these types of people, or a yogi who has all these qualities in him. Okay, these people, they experience Brahman and they get mukti. So, this is the English translation. The sages, rishis who see the truth as it is, those whose impurities have been removed, those whose doubts have been dispelled, those who have controlled their mind, and those who are devoted to the well-being of all living beings, obtain liberation from material existence and experience Brahman. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. So he's reinforcing the last 2 shlokas, the last 3 shlokas, by saying kama krodha vimuktanam, those who are free of kama and krodha. Yatinam, yati means a practitioner. Yatachetasam, one who has controlled his mind. Abhitaha, the nearby. Abhitaha means nearby or in the proximity of Brahma Nirvanam. The same word, Brahma Nirvanam, Mukti. They are very close to Mukti. Vartate vidita atmanam, those who have really understood the self. Liberation from material existence is very near for those practitioners who are free from material desire and anger, have gained control on their mind and intellect, and have understood the nature of the self. And then he goes forward. He says, he's actually now giving us 2 shlokas where he is offering a process of meditation. So he's actually referring to the process of Ashtanga Yoga, because the 6th chapter, okay, is going to talk about controlling the mind through Ashtanga Yoga. The process of Ashtanga Yoga, are also called as Dhyana Yoga. So now these 2 shlokas act as a, what do you call, an abstract of the 6th chapter. Now this is the 3rd last and the 2nd last shloka of the 5th chapter. And after this, the 5th chapter will conclude in the last shloka. So let's understand what these 2 shlokas are telling us. Sparshan kritva bahir bahyan chakshush chaivantare bhruvoho pranapanau samau kritva nasabhyantara charinav yatendriya manobuddhihi munihi moksha parayanaha vigatecha bhayakrodo yas sadha mukta eva saha. So he's telling that now there is a path on which, after you do karma yoga and you have attained a certain level of purity, normally people may think that now let's do jnana yoga. Jnana yoga means where you focus more on doing tapasya. You do various kinds of vrata, tapasya, and you stop doing your nitya naimittika karma, which is a part of karma yoga. Karma yoga is centered around nitya naimittika karma. So when you get purified by doing karma yoga, by doing your nitya naimittika karma with detachment, anasakti, you become purified and you reach a point where you can say that now I'll stop doing my nitya naimittika karma and I'll do only jnana. I'll focus on jnana, focus on my real self. And at that stage, you are qualified to do that because you have done karma yoga for so many years and you have purified your mind. Okay, now he is giving an alternative. He says, instead of doing that path of jnana, where you just sit and meditate and do a lot of tapasya, do tapasya in this manner by doing dhyan. Okay, learn to control your breath. Okay, so he gives a systematic process where he says, sparshan kritva bahihi bahyan. So the different objects of the senses, bahihi kritva, means you remove them, you distance them in the mind, in your mind. Okay, so the sense of sight, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing, the sense of touch. It is through these senses that we get pleasure in this world. But suppose you consciously practice that, no, I will regulate, I will reduce the pleasures I get through these by different means, such as reducing the quantity of food. I will try to eat only one meal a day. Okay, so this is not for us. This is only for those who are doing the Ashtanga Yoga. But I'm describing the process that is described in the Yoga Shastra. So they slowly reduce their consumption of food. They try to live only on water. Then they try to live only on air. Okay, all the while they're training their mind that I am not this material body. My body needs this. I don't need this. I have to separate myself from material existence. Okay, in this way they contemplate. They keep on contemplating and they pull themselves mentally, withdraw themselves, the inner withdrawal. So inner withdrawal, okay, so this is all psychology. Inner withdrawal from the external objects of the senses. So then as you do that, you do this. Chakshuscha eva antare bhruvoho. Bhruvoho in Sanskrit translates to English as bro, eyebrow. Right? In English we say bro. In Sanskrit it is bruhu. Bruhu is the original word. In plural it becomes bruvaha. Then this is Saptami Vibhakti. Bhruvoho means in the midst of the two eyebrows. Chakshuscha eva antare bhruvoho. You focus your eyes, the two eyes, on a spot which is in between the two eyebrows. That is the process of Ashtanga Yoga, where you meditate by looking like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see me on the camera, but now my eyes are looking at this spot between the two eyebrows. Okay. Prana panau samau kritva. Prana apana. Prana means the incoming breath. Apana means outgoing breath. Samau kritva, balancing them, balancing the incoming and outgoing breath by the process of anulom vilom, right? Take in the breath and you hold the breath. That's called kumbhaka. Antak kumbhaka. Then you leave out the breath and then again you hold the breath. That's called bahish kumbhaka. So prana panau samau kritva. You do pranayama in a very systematic manner, very devoted manner, by which helps you to control the mind and do all these things which we are discussing. Nasabhyantara charino, through the nostrils. Nasabhyantara charino means the nostrils play a major role in doing this pranayama, right? Yatendriya manobuddhi, such a person, he is systematically, in a processual manner, using process, he is endeavoring to control his mind and intelligence. Such a muni is moksha parayanaha, he is devoted to moksha. He is constantly contemplating on the goal known as moksha. And he is vigata ichha bhaya krodha. He is free from ichha, bhaya and krodha. Ichha means the desire. Bhaya, the fear that somebody will take away my thing, my desire will not be fulfilled. The thought that, I have this desire, I have to achieve this thing before I die, but now if I do yoga, that desire will go away. The fear of losing the desire itself, that's another big desire. So vigata ichha bhaya krodha. So naturally krodha also goes away. When ichha goes away, krodha also goes away. Such a person, yes sada, sada mukta eva saha. Such a person, actually even as he is living, even when he is living, even in the stage of sadhana itself, he is a mukta, he is a jivana mukta. He is experiencing mukti. He doesn't have to die to get mukti. Even before he dies, he is already experiencing what is known as mukti. Okay, so this is the initiation of the process of dhyana yoga. And in the 6th chapter, this will be discussed in more detail. And Arjuna will then ask many questions connected to it. The aspirant, the muni, intently pursuing liberation from material existence, mukti parayana, who is controlled their mind and intelligence by withdrawing their mind from external sense objects such as touch, sight, sound, smell, and taste, by focusing their vision on a spot between the eyebrows, and by balancing their incoming and outgoing breaths through the nostrils, has become free from material desire, fear, and anger, is certainly always liberated. So with this, Sri Bhagavan concludes the 5th chapter. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So at the end of doing all forms of yoga, whether it is karma yoga, jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga, if you want to get mukti, you have to perform bhakti. You have to connect with Sri Bhagavan. Otherwise, mukti is not possible. Okay, that is again reinforced in the Gita many times. And so now we see that in the 5th shloka, in the conclusion of the 5th chapter, the last shloka is again pointing to that. He says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam. He's talking about himself. So mam means me. Okay, so Krishna is saying me. So what about me? He says, gyatva mam, knowing me. So knowing me as what? He says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam. Bhoktaram means, actually literal meaning of Bhoktaram in Sanskrit, Bhokta. It comes from the word Bhokta. Bhokta in Prathama Vibhakti becomes Bhoktaram in Dvitiya Vibhakti. Okay, Bhoktri, that's the original word. So Bhoktaram means literally enjoyer. Okay, but actually in this context, it doesn't mean enjoyer because Sri Bhagavan is not an enjoyer. What is he? It's translated as Palayita. Bhokta is translated as Palayita, means one who nourishes. Nourishes what? Yajna tapasam. Yajna and tapas. These two things he nourishes. Okay. Because why these two words are mentioned here is because so far all that we have been talking about is the process of karma yoga followed by jnana yoga. Karma yoga is about yajna, performing yajna. It's already been discussed in the 3rd chapter, 4th chapter. 3rd and 4th chapters, a lot of discussion on yajna happened. The performance of yajna. Yajna is worship. Different forms of yajna. How even our regular karma, nitya naimitika karma, is to be thought of as yajna. All that has been discussed. That's part of karma yoga. That's the mentality of karma yoga. And the mentality of jnana yoga is tapasya, tapas. So yajna tapasam refers to the whole set of activities which are involved in karma yoga and jnana yoga. As I have been saying earlier also, karma yoga and jnana yoga are 2 stages of the same path. They are not 2 different paths. Once a person performs karma yoga to some extent and becomes sufficiently mature, they perform jnana yoga after that. Or alternatively, now in the 6th chapter, dhyana yoga. Okay, so I am the nourisher, Krishna says. Bhagavan says, I am the nourisher. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. I am actually the Maheshwara, the supreme master, the supreme Ishvara of sarvaloka, of the entire universe. Okay, or loka word also means not only the universe, it also means all people. Lokaha means a person. So sarvaloka means all people. I am the master of all living beings. But I am not only the master, I am suhridam sarvabhutanam. Suhridam means suhrit. Suhrit means a very dear friend, right? Mitram. Mitra, we know in Hindi, Mitra means friend, right? In Sanskrit, Mitram. Mitram means a friend. Suhrit means a very intimate friend. Okay, not just a friend, but a friend with whom you can confide your very personal things. Suhrit, such a person is called Suhrit. Okay, intimate friend. So Sri Bhagavan describes himself as a Suhrit, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. I am the intimate friend of all living beings. Gyatva, knowing that. Knowing that I am all these things, Shantim Richati, attains that supreme peace. So Shantim here refers to Mukti. That supreme peace means that supreme destination called Mukti, where that ultimate peace is obtained. So knowing this is an important thing. To obtain Mukti, it's not merely enough to do some karma yoga and then jnana yoga or some dhyana yoga by doing pranayam. You have to go beyond that and do bhakti. You have to connect with Bhagavan. Only when we connect with Bhagavan, Mukti is possible. Otherwise, Mukti is not possible. Otherwise, what happens? We reach a stage of Sattva Guna. By doing the process of karma, jnana, dhyana, etc., we become free from kama, krodha, etc., and our mind becomes very calm, very peaceful, and full of knowledge. Right? We enjoy that happiness of knowledge, and that is called the state of being in Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna is a very happy state to be in, and we should aspire for that. But merely being in Sattva Guna is not enough to guarantee that we will get mukti, or the cessation of birth, future birth. Mukti is possible only when we actually acknowledge the existence of Bhagavan and connect with him. Okay, and we also know his true nature. Bhagavan is not some imagination. It's not some imaginary energy that we are giving a form to. Bhagavan, as described in the Bhagavad-Gita, later on he will say, Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayaha. He says, less intelligent people say that there is nothing called God. There's only some energy. There's some great energy, and we give it a form because we cannot meditate without a form, and therefore we give it some imaginary form like Krishna, Rama, Durga, Ganesha. We can give whatever form you want, whatever you like, you give some form. Or you can even call it, some people even go to the extent of saying, why do you want to make it look like a human being? You can meditate on the table, you can meditate on the chair, you can meditate on whatever you like. Okay. Now, our Shastra doesn't accept these arguments. It's very clear. Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear later on in the ninth chapter. Shri Bhagavan says, Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayaha. Says people who say that this unmanifest energy has now has taken a form. Actually, it's unmanifest, but some form has been given to it by people. Such people are not intelligent, because my real nature is a form of vyakti, in the sense I am a person. My personal nature always exists. So here he is pointing out to saying, Suhrudam sarva bhutanam, know me to be the well-wisher of all living beings. So how can something which is just unmanifest be a well-wisher? Naturally, if we are persons, each of us is a person, isn't it? Similarly, Sri Bhagavan is also a person, and he is our supreme well-wisher and our most intimate friend. So by saying these things, he invites us to connect with him. He invites us to connect personally with him and feel that happiness, feel that sense of security, the sense of love that we can feel when we connect with somebody who is very intimate with us. So translating this, one who knows me as the nourisher of worship and austerity, as the supreme master of all living beings, and as the dear friend and well-wisher of everyone, attains liberation from material existence. So in the path of bhakti, there is implicit mukti, in the sense the people who perform bhakti, pure Shuddha bhakti, and this was the bhakti that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared in Bengal, Krishna, who appeared in Bengal about 530, 40 years back in 1486. So he taught bhakti as something that is even free from the desire for mukti. In that form of bhakti, one only thinks of what is pleasing to Bhagavan. I should conduct myself, I should live my life in the way that Sri Bhagavan will always be happy about. And by living your life in that manner, then mukti becomes immaterial, because you feel happiness throughout. You live a life of happiness regardless of what happens around you. It doesn't matter if somebody gets promoted ahead of you. It doesn't matter if somebody has stolen something from you. Of course, these things cause temporary moments of grief. But somebody who is practicing bhakti and is connected to Bhagavan in their consciousness is able to cope with it and overcome that grief very quickly. And they're able to remind themselves that ultimately everything is done by him. Okay? And Sri Bhagavan personally takes care of them. Like he says in the 9th chapter, he says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. He says, those who are always thinking about me and those who are endeavoring to come towards me, for them, I carry whatever they lack. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. This word yogakshema in Sanskrit, it's used in some other Indian languages also. What it means is this: Yogakshema is defined as alabdha labho yogaha tasya rakshanam kshema. That's the definition of the word Yogakshema in Sanskrit. Alabdha labha, that which you don't have, getting that. That's called yoga. Okay, the word yoga is used in that sense here. Yoga means connecting with what you don't have, getting what you don't have. And kshema means tasya rakshanam kshema, means protecting what you already have. Okay, so Shri Bhagavan says, I do that. I ensure that the person who is fully devoted to my work, to connect with me and to make progress towards me, such a person who is always thinking about me, I provide him whatever he lacks. If he doesn't have something that is required for his sustenance, his maintenance, so that he can perform his activities better, I provide that to him. and I protect whatever he already has. So he doesn't have to worry. He doesn't have to go out of his way to think how will, who will take care of me. If I am doing bhakti, then what will happen? I may then become too renounced and lose everything that I have. If somebody comes and asks me something, I may just give it away and then I won't have anything. But this kind of insecurity in the mind when you think of performing yoga, in fact, many people, when they think about a spiritual path, one of the fears that prevents people from coming to the spiritual path is this. And if I start progressing on the spiritual path, then that will make me give away whatever I have, because I'll become very kind and I'll start giving away things. And in that mood of kindness, when I give away whatever I have, and I'm very, generous to everybody, then ultimately I'll be left with nothing. And then if I'm left with nothing, then who will take care of me? What will happen to me? So that fear, anticipating such a situation and fearing that situation, people don't want to come to the spiritual path. Straight away, it's rejected. Even before it starts, it stops. It doesn't start at all. Right? So that is why Sri Bhagavan repeatedly in the Bhagavad-Gita, these kind of shlokas are spoken by him to give us assurance that don't worry, nothing will happen. As you progress on spiritual path, naturally the intelligence comes as to how to deal with different situations. So, it protects you from being sometimes over generous. You know when to be generous, when not to be generous. You know how to deal with whom in what manner. Right? This intelligence comes to a bhakta. And if you see, for example, the stories in the Mahabharata or elsewhere, the bhaktas of Krishna, they are always protected, right? In all situations. There's one very interesting story which happened in the time of Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu was here. And that is the story of his own bhakta by name Haridas. There was a bhakta at that time, living 500 years back. His name was Haridas, and he was also known as Haridas Thakur. Thakur is a word used in Bengal and Eastern India to refer to somebody it's also used for God, Thakurji. In the temple, they refer to Bhagavan as Thakurji, and also used for people who are saintly, Thakur. So Haridas Thakur, the story of Haridas Thakur goes that Haridas Thakur there are two versions of this about his ancestry. Some people say that he was born a Muslim and then became a Bhakta of Krishna. But some people say no, he was actually born as a Brahmin, but his parents were dead, died. I mean, shortly after his birth, they passed away, and therefore he was taken care of by a Muslim family. Either way, he was brought up in a Muslim family. Whether he was born a Muslim or born a Brahmin, he was brought up in a Muslim family. And he was known by many people as a Muslim. They thought he was actually a Muslim. But as he grew up, he was very deeply attracted to Mahaprabhu and to Krishna, and he became a Bhakta. He started practicing the activities of bhakti, and core to the process of bhakti, the core practice is chanting the names of Krishna, chanting the Mahamantra, right? So all of you know this. So that's the core practice. That's the Mula practice, means that's the basis for all other practices. If somebody chants the name of Krishna and does it in a systematic manner, regularly with focus, with proper attention, in a proper manner, then automatically it develops the mind for other things, and it tells the person how much he should do the other activities of bhakti, like going to a temple or offering flowers to the deity or eating prasadam. All those things also fall in place. But the Mula practice, the most fundamental practice, is chanting the names of God. So now Haridas Thakur became addicted to chanting. He became fully addicted to it, so much so that he would chant for hours together, and not worry about his food, not worry about anything else, about taking care of himself. He became so addicted to it. He started getting so much happiness in that he would go on doing that. And ultimately, it reached a point where he would do that 24 hours. He overcame sleep. His consciousness became so much pure that he did not need to sleep. He did not need to eat. He became like a dhyana yogi. Like we just spoke about Ashtanga yoga, where the yogi consciously tries to do that. Here, a yogi, a bhakti yogi, does not consciously try to do that. By virtue of chanting, by virtue of his spiritual activities, he automatically progresses towards that. It becomes an automatic outcome of that. So Haridas Thakur reached a stage when he withdrew from the normal village where he was living. He went to a cave outside the village or the town where he was living earlier. And in that cave, he would sit for 24 hours non-stop. he would sit and go on chanting the names of Bhagwan. And he would have a commitment that I will chant so many names in a day, some 3 lakh names or something. And he would use a japamala to count that. And by the time the count gets over, almost 24 hours, 23 and a half hours have passed. So then in that remaining half an hour, what he would do is he would probably get up, have a wash. And if there was somebody had left some piece of food or something, he would quickly eat something and then again start for the next round of 300,000 japa. So this way he would go on doing japa. So the story goes that as he was doing this, people started realizing that there is an extraordinary person living in our vicinity, and they would sometimes come offer him something. He would not be bothered about that. He would be completely lost in his japa. But they would come, they would leave some fruits, they would come and offer their respects, they would go away. So as this kept happening and his fame started spreading around the state of Odisha, there was a Muslim king. And this at that point of time, Odisha, Bengal were more together than it is now. They were more together than it is today. They are two distinct states. So there was a king in Bengal, a Muslim king, who became very jealous of this. He could not tolerate that this fellow, he was actually a Muslim, and now he is becoming bigger than me. Everybody knows about him. He's getting so much worship, so much fame. And what is he doing? He's doing nothing. He's only sitting there and pretending to be chanting some name or something. Who's this guy? And why are the people worshipping him? I'll show this guy's true nature. I'll expose him. Okay, so what did he do? He called a prostitute, a woman who was known for, seducing men and destroying their minds. So he caught hold of one of the prostitutes in his palace, and he said, "You go to this guy and bring him here. We finish him off." So this prostitute, she did what she was supposed to do. She went there and she dressed herself up. She dressed herself up in a manner that would try to break the vow of a man. So typically looking at her, any man would melt and give up whatever he was doing. So this was a well-known prostitute, very capable. He went to this place and she approached him. And when she approached him, it was nighttime. She chose nighttime because that's the time you can do these kind of things. So she went there, and it was a full moon night. She went there and she sat outside his cave, and she offered her respects, and she started praising him. She said, "Oh, what a great saint you are. I'm a poor woman and I know I'm lost. I need your help." So she started talking to him. So Haridas was in his vata and he opened his eyes and he saw this woman. And the moment he saw her, immediately he knew why she had come. His spiritual power was so much that in one instant he could make out who has sent her and why she had come there. Right? He had absolutely no confusion or doubt about this lady who had come. So he looked at her, and in his heart, not only that he did not feel lust, he felt immense compassion upon her. He said, "What a life this woman is living. She's, after all, she's a jivatma like me. And instead of doing bhakti to Krishna, she's living her life trying to seduce people, trying to destroy the vrata of people. What will happen to her after this life? She will go to the worst hell and she will suffer like anything. After all, she's just a jivatma like me in a woman's body. What a pitiable condition she is in." So looking at her, immediately Haridas could feel immense compassion. And with that compassion, he decided to reform her. So what did he do? He told her, "I'm happy to see you, but please give me some time. I have actually committed myself to chant this japa. So I will attend to you and whatever you want, I'll give you, but please give me some time. Let me finish my japa and then I'll join you." So she said, "Okay, I'm waiting for you." So he continued to do japa. And he continued to do japa right in front of her, and she kept hearing as he was chanting. And he went on and on and on for hours together, the whole night. He went on doing japa. And this woman is wondering, normally by now any man would have come and started enjoying with me. But this guy, he is not bothered at all. He's simply not bothered about my presence here. And he's going on chanting that name. What is he doing there? Why does he keep doing that? So thinking like this, she kept on hearing what he was chanting. And by hearing what he was chanting, slowly her mind began to change. She started reflecting on herself. She started thinking, why have I come here? Why have I come to this place? I came here for some purpose, but now I see that this guy is simply not interested in me. And he's getting so much pleasure in doing that thing. He seems to be, his face is radiant. He's got a smile on his face. He's got a very pleasant look on his face. He's not distressed at all. He's not even feeling sleepy. What is happening there? Something must be special about that. So as she started thinking about that, she started experiencing a deep regret in her mind. She started regretting what she was doing. She said, actually, I am living a very bad life. I am going and destroying the lives of other men. And I have been sent by this fellow, and he has sent me to destroy him. No, I should not be doing this. So by the time it was morning, her mind had completely changed. And she realized that I should not be doing this. So she fell at his feet. She said, oh, Mahatma, please forgive me. I came here with the intention to destroy you, and now you have changed me. You have changed my heart. Please forgive me. Please make me your disciple. So she caught hold of his feet, and Haridas said, please get up. I knew why you had come, and that is why I did this. I made you sit and hear the holy name. It is not me who has changed you. This holy name has changed you. This Harinam has changed you. So he said, now please do whatever I say. You sit here in this cave and start doing japa exactly like the way I was doing. Okay. So she said, yes, you are my guru and I will do whatever you're saying. So she sat there, she started doing japa. And the moment he gave her diksha, Haridas got up from that cave and he left. He went to some other place. And this prostitute, who had now become a bhakta, she became very famous. She became very famous as a saint. She became a saint. She shaved her head and she started wearing those clothes which saintly women wear. And she lived there for till the end of her life. She lived there doing japa, remembering her guru and regretting her past life, what she had been doing. She became purified and she became an object of worship. She became known as a saintly person in that place. So this is the power of bhakti. I mean, this is how Sri Bhagavan, actually, this is how Sri Bhagavan reforms people. When he wants to give kripa or, what is called as the grace. In Hindi, in Sanskrit, we say kripa. Okay, Bhagavad kripa. So when Bhagavad kripa comes, it comes in very unusual ways. And you can see here how it comes like this, a prostitute trying to seduce a man and, coming with all ill intention, just like Putana. Putana goes to Krishna with the intention to kill him. Similarly, she's coming here with the intention to destroy him, but she gets reformed, right? Putana got mukti. So here, this lady, she gets bhakti. She gets bhakti and she's completely delivered. So this is the power of bhakti and the spiritual path. So ultimately, Bhagavad-gita gives us the full package. We have karma-yoga, jnana-yoga, dhyana-yoga, and bhakti-yoga. And bhakti is the ultimate. It's the conclusion of Bhagavad-gita. In the end of Bhagavad-gita, Sri Bhagavan says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. So I will deliver you. Just take shelter of me. Give up all kinds of dharma. Just take shelter of me. I will deliver you from all sinful activity. So the Bhagavad Gita is a very, very inspiring text. And it's actually very practically actionable for us. We are not yogis. We are not people who are, who can go to a cave and meditate. We are living our normal life. We are doing our work. We are students. We are professors. We are working in companies. We have our families to take care of. So how can we incorporate these into our own life? We can, for example, contemplate every day on our own identity as an eternal, pure, and knowledgeable being. This is exactly what the Gita is saying again and again. This is one message that the Gita gives from beginning to end, keeps pointing to our nature as spiritual nature. We are not material at all. And we are a part of that Bhagavan. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. He says, eternally, the living being is a part of me. And we are completely distinct from this material nature. So as we do this, if we are also able to practice some regulation, okay, when we say regulation, we don't mean complete restraint. Regulation and restraint, regulated restraint. For example, suppose I'm eating 5 times a day. Can I bring it down to 3 times a day, right? Now that is not only good for my spiritual progress, it's also good for my material health. I will have a healthier body, right? Remind myself that slowly withdrawing my mind and intelligence from the sense objects ultimately gives me better peace. Okay, even one day, for example, today is Dwadashi. It is the fasting for Ekadashi. Ekadashi fasting this time is on Dwadashi. So by simply fasting for one day, when I say fasting, it need not be, okay, ideally fasting is without water also, complete fasting. But even if you're not able to do that, simple fasting like eating only fruits, having juices, fruit juices, vegetable juices, or water, lemon juice. Living one day like that is not going to kill us. Not only is it not going to kill us, the next day becomes much better because you find that suddenly you feel much healthier, your breathing becomes much lighter, your clarity, your mind is thinking much clearer, everything is better, right? So actually spiritual practices are designed in such a manner that even in our material life we become happier. We don't become sadder, we become happier. It's not that happiness comes at the end of the spiritual journey, it's a part of the journey right from the beginning. Learn to tolerate the forces of lust. It's so inspiring, and anger, and look forward to the happiness as we tolerate this, as we tolerate the force of anger. So spiritual path does not mean that right from the beginning we become free from anger. We learn to tolerate. Consciously practice mental calmness and consciously practice a simple lifestyle. The simpler we are, for example, a simple example of simplicity is if I have a car, let's say somebody has a car, okay, they have, let's say, a hatchback car, okay. Now, as they progress over time, their salary will improve, they'll get promotions. And then they will see that their colleagues at the same level, they have bought bigger cars, have gone to a bigger house, okay. Now, just because my colleagues are buying bigger cars and going to a bigger house, should I also buy a bigger car? Should I also go to a bigger house? Ask this question. If the answer convincingly becomes yes, yes, you need a bigger car now because you need to carry more luggage. Your family has grown bigger and you need to carry them wherever you go. If the answer is genuinely yes, then go for a bigger car. Otherwise, don't go for a bigger car. Be as simple as possible. Just because somebody else goes for a bigger car doesn't mean I should also go for a bigger car, right? That's the meaning of consciously practicing simplicity. And then most important is this, contemplate on Sri Bhagavan as one's own very dear friend and well-wisher. This is the key point. This is the base for everything, right? Without acknowledging the presence of Bhagavan in our life, the story is incomplete. Okay, and Bhagavan is always eager to guide us. When we connect with him, that guidance immediately comes. And if we are sincere and genuine, then we can immediately realize that guidance inside us. All the time we feel this. Okay, this is the message of the Bhagavad-Gita. And today we have completed the 5th chapter of the Gita. The 5th chapter focused on the debate between karma-yoga and karma-sannyasa. That's how it began, where Arjuna asking the question that once I have made sufficient progress in karma-yoga, can I give up all my karma? And Shri Bhagavan begins by answering that no, don't give up your karma, continue doing your karma, and then make spiritual progress. Okay, so the 5th chapter has been concluded today, and in the next class, we will start with the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Om Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspati Shanno Vishnurrukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tatvaktaram Avatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.